Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Check Engine Podcast. It's the only podcast produced by three winners of IMSA's Spirit of the Race Award, and, as of this past weekend, the only podcast that can be found on an AMG GT4 in the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge.
Oh, hell yeah. We made it.
We made it. We got to go over our timeline real quick at some point in this episode, just how we got to that point. But
for sure.
Coming up later. So, we are not a professional motoring podcast. We don't work for any magazines. We don't work for any race teams or car companies. We're just fanboys who love talking about cars. And we want you to join in the discussion with us. You can find us. Go to our website. We got a website now. It's checkenginepodcast.com. It'll give you links to anywhere you want to go to catch us, to listen, to find us on social. Main hub, of course, is anchor.fm. To my left, I've got one co-host, Andrew. We're sporting a hat this evening, which is unlike you. How are you doing?
I'm feeling inspired. I feel refreshed from our weekend at the racetrack. I'm ready.
And sitting across the table from us is our visibly annoyed producer, Tristan, from all the pre-show shenanigans. Tristan,
we finally started recording this episode, and I am relieved. I'm also happy to be back from the races. As Andrew mentioned, it's always a refreshing experience. It gets you back to why we're doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Even if we are at the end of the work week plus the travel week a little slappy.
Yeah. We're a little off the wall here, so that's why Tristan is very visibly annoyed. Sorry, Tristan, but we are going to get into this. So before we went to Mid-Ohio, we did a preview episode of what we were looking for. Hopefully you guys stayed up to date with all the posts and pictures and videos and reporting, if you want to call it that, we were doing from the racetrack. But tonight we're going to do a post-race recap for you. We're going to kind of circle it back to our racetrack episode, what makes a good racetrack, and we're going to kind of go through criteria by criteria that we listed out there and throw Mid-Ohio into each one of those and see how it turned out. But before we get into that, as always, we'd like to start with some pace laps. So any major news tidbits we want to hit on today?
Yeah, a huge one, actually. Ford is suspending production of their F-150, and does anyone know if it's the rest of the F truck line?
It is the F series.
At least many. I know
at least most of them.
Some of the Super Duties are also affected as well.
But yeah, there was a rather tragic fire at a factory in Taiwan. Was it 5 firefighters?
I thought it was in
Michigan.
Well, there was one in Taiwan as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man,
That
Ford just
also
cannot
happened.
catch a break.
Yeah, because the one I read about was an electronics company in Michigan.
This is interesting. We're actually talking about two
separate things.
There are two major supply chain. In Taiwan, 5 Taiwanese firefighters died going into this building that then kind of exploded a little bit. And
Godspeed, guys.
The bravest and all that. But yeah, so that was going to affect their supply chain. Ford was the first company on the ground, but this factory also made parts for FCA and several other manufacturers. I can't quite remember which ones. I think some GM branches, of course.
Sure.
So that was one disruption, but then you guys have another.
Yeah, there's that make driver information components, dashboard pieces.
Light dashboard electronics outside of Lansing, I think. It was somewhere in Michigan.
It was Michigan.
That caught fire.
It was not far from the home of Ford.
Right.
For sure. Fire there as well, which brought their production line to a stop. That one, I don't believe there were anything serious coming from that one other than a halt in production.
Right. No.
Yeah.
At least from what we read, no major injuries or anything reported like that to the actual people who work there, thankfully. But so Ford is halting production on, well, their entire F series, but the F-150 is that one vehicle does a quarter of their global sales, and they can't make it for the time being.
Yeah, I don't know what the.
There's last time I checked, there's about an 80-day supply.
Wow. That's more than I thought, actually.
Yeah, it's not long, but they've still got some to sell.
Well, you got to remember what the statistic was. One every minute.
Yeah, it's a
is
lot
sold.
of trucks.
Yeah. So an 80-day supply if that's still the going rate, is quite a few trucks.
Yeah.
Still a lot of trucks. But I personally, I think just because of the 80-day supply, how long is it going to take to get these plants back up and running? I have no idea. But almost 3 months where the dealerships don't necessarily need more trucks. I mean, it's a nasty looking headline.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you don't want it to happen because obviously it's something that's completely out of Ford's control. But once you dig into it and read the story, it's not the worst deal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think consumers might catch a bit of burn from this because dealers are going to be able to basically make you charge whatever they want to because it's like, oh, I'll just wait. Okay, how long are you going to wait? There might not be any in 90 days. Whatever. You know?
Right, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's the trickle down that I'm concerned about, is that all of a sudden there is a brand new level of scarcity on a Ford F-150.
Yeah, something you thought you'd never hear.
Right.
Right.
Like it was the most commoditized, to use Ford boilerplate
Yeah.
quotes, it is the most commoditized vehicle in their lineup, basically, and now all of a sudden it's becoming scarce, like
Overnight.
literally like that.
Yeah.
So
Yep. So
Here's,
that was exciting.
here's something I was thinking about. We know that Ford is going all out to raise their stock price not in 2 years, not at the end of the year, this exact second. This is their stock price is going to fall based off of this.
Yep.
When you lose a volume seller, and yes, there's a 80-day supply or whatever it was, but you have to think a lot of those F-150 sales are fleet vehicles. Do you
Yes.
think they build more of those because they're fleet, or do they build less because they're not, they're not lot and they just run, they do production runs essentially of fleet vehicles, so base models with basically all of the
two-wheel drive, non-crew cab,
or
you
all
know.
of the workers' parts in it with the four-wheel drive that added, the
Yeah.
increased radiator size, all that stuff. I don't know how the trucks are manufactured, but I would almost have to think that those fleet trucks, because they're configured differently, are done in different runs. So the question would then become, what do they really have? And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because if they do take a hit in the commercial sector, in the fleet sector, that's going to, I think, maybe hit their stock price even harder than if some customers can't buy the trucks they're looking for.
Yeah. But more on that as it develops.
More on that as it develops. It's really all we know at this point is, hey, there was a fire. Ford cannot produce F-Series for the foreseeable future, the near future. So, yeah, as we get more details on that, keep tuning in for more updates as we go. Any other news tidbits or neat cars before we dive into the episode?
I have been really wanting to find neat cars, and outside of to be clear, we saw a lot of neat cars at Mid-Ohio.
Say, there will
Which
be
we'll
some,
get into.
Say, there
Yeah,
will be some
exactly.
neat cars coming, but
We saw a fleet of Ford GTs.
Yeah,
For-
a whole bunch
for-
of them.
for example,
For
Yeah.
example.
But that's all part of the track. Outside of that, even though we had some really nice weather, it then got cold and rainy, and I haven't seen anything that cool in a while.
I've got... Well, you guys tell me how neat this is. So,
from not to that's pretty neat.
yeah, okay, we'll use that scale.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So, first impression, GMC Yukon Denali.
Why bring it up?
Yeah, not neat.
Slammed to the point that it looks essentially just like a giant station wagon.
I'm actually less interested.
All right, then we'll stop talking about it, but that's what I saw.
It's certainly odd car news.
Stance Nation.
That's why I said I don't know if it's neat or not.
Did
You
it
guys
have
tell me.
extreme camber? Was it actually stanced, or was it just lowered?
It was just lowered, like almost zero clearance on a Yukon.
Why? Do you think it was bagged?
Oh, maybe.
The air suspension, for those who don't know the parlance.
Maybe.
The patois.
Maybe. I don't know, but that's really the best one I've got in the past outside of the racetrack.
That's
So.
evidence. It's been dry on the streets.
So there we
Yeah,
go.
that's it. That's all
Fine.
we've got.
So we're gonna eliminate the pace laps for this episode. The green is coming out, and we are going to review our weekend in Mid-Ohio, which I think coming back we were all pretty stoked on. It was a pretty successful weekend through and through,
It was very different than every track we've been to so far.
and we'll get into why as we go.
Yeah.
We want to just kick it off with some just general takeaways from the weekend, just kind of high level. First thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, sure.
Walking.
walking.
If I could choose one word to describe Mid-Ohio, it would be walking.
Here's the thing about Mid-Ohio. You hear a lot from your parents, when they're giving you these stories about their youth, how everything was uphill both ways. Mid-Ohio is actually uphill both ways.
Yeah.
There's a lot of elevation at that racetrack in a very small space.
What are you doing in Ohio that the hills all go up?
They don't go back down. They only go
How
up
is that
again.
possible?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's my main takeaway is there's a lot of interesting walking. Driven primarily by the fact I think that other tracks would have this kind of issue, by the fact that they park all of your general admission people in the same lot way out at the front of the track, and you've got to walk, burn your car, walk everywhere.
Mhm. They
So
did that. And
that's that's kind of the biggest takeaway as a negative. I'd say the biggest for me, positive takeaway is the direct result. All of that elevation change makes for very good racing. That is a very technical track, and it's fun to watch when you can see it.
Right.
Mhm.
Andrew, take away.
My takeaway, and this sounds like shade thrown at Mid-Ohio, but it's really not. And obviously we'll talk about it more as we get through. I still forget that Road America is a terrible comparison to Bring Anywhere.
Yeah, it's
Because
rough baseline for everybody else.
and the reason is that, and again, why I forget this, I don't know. The reason is that IMSA, as you pointed out to me, Nick, bring people who want to host IMSA events to Road America and say, this is how we want our event hosted. Because they just put the most effort into it.
Right.
While not making it seem like it looks very effortless. It looks like this event just popped up organically out of the ground and like it was meant to be.
It's
there.
seamless.
Yeah.
It's very seamless how they do it. And also you have to, every track is a different story. Do they have the space? Do they have the capacity?
Exactly.
Do they have the facilities to do what Road America does? But yeah, IMSA, the reason they do all of their schedule announcements and big series announcements for the following year at Road America, and Scott Atherton has said this during these announcements, is because Road America is our baseline. It is the example that we use for the other venues.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring that up is because I am very aware of the fact that Mid-Ohio had many really good qualities, and it was better than some of the other tracks that I've gone to, and some of the tracks that you two have gone to as well. But I always come in with Road America in my head, and I try to not do that because it really ruins what's actually in front of you. So that's my one takeaway. I still struggle with not bringing that in, and once I did get rid of that, I did find a lot to enjoy.
There you go.
Yep.
I've got 3 quick main points. Number 1, when it wants to be, Lexington, Ohio is the windiest place on the planet.
Holy crap, yeah.
Yes.
I don't think ever in my life have I had to stop myself from falling and stop the hat from blowing off my head at the same time.
Yeah, in opposite directions.
In opposite directions. Like, I think it was the highest straight line speed for wind ever recorded in human history on Friday.
Insane.
Point number 2, the average weight of the bees in Ohio is about 6.5 pounds.
That is also true.
The bees were bigger than the heads on our
That was
microphones.
horrifying.
It was crazy. And number 3, and I don't know why I didn't notice this before because it has nothing to do with Mid-Ohio. It takes our good friend Tristan here about 1 million years to get out of a car when we stop.
He's got that dicky hip, though.
It does.
Don't worry, so does he.
Okay, listen.
Exactly one time I said, "Now my hip's kind of sore." Exactly as many times as you said, "My hip's kind of sore."
But
Yep. So
No.
that's nothing there.
but no.
No, it takes me 1 million years because I'm also carrying everything. I have the cooler and everything else that I'm gathering up to go.
We did watch a whole race while you're getting out of the car.
No, you didn't. These 2 men are liars, and I will not stand for this.
We're just gonna keep needling at him. He's already annoyed, so we're just gonna keep rolling with it. So those are some key takeaways, I think. Well,
About the state of Ohio and me. Do you have any takeaways about
Any about the track?
Mid-Ohio?
No.
Okay.
We're gonna dig into that once we get into the meat of this episode here. So yeah, if you guys remember
Barbecue.
meat, and that's
We'll
has
get
to
there
do with it.
too.
We'll get there too.
Everyone.
So if you, dear listener, remember our, I think it was episode 4 we did on the racetracks. The title is The Good, the Bad, and the Watkins Glen. If you haven't heard it yet, go look it up. We kind of broke it down in like how to evaluate a racetrack from a fan perspective into 4 buckets. The first is just general location. There's atmosphere / hospitality. There's the wow factor. Is there something that really makes your eyes pop or your jaw drop when you walk through the gate? And then, of course, like raceability, is the track actually fun to watch cars drive on? So we're gonna kind of take each one of those topics and just throw Mid Ohio in there and see how it comes out. So we'll just start right from the top of the list here and go with location. So the actual plot of land that the track sits on. Yays, nays, what do we think?
I gotta say, I was stunned by how beautiful the area was.
Yes.
And in terms of shade layout, it was actually pretty good at the track. It was very pastoral. There were some pine forests. There were
Pine forest, deciduous trees.
trees still standing, very much unlike VIR, where they just clear cut all the trees. I don't know that I want to give too much away because it kind of goes into the raceability of the track, but that same setting has a pretty serious downside when it comes to viewing area.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's the only. I prefer this type of terrain and type of surrounding for a racetrack. I think it falls into the same category for me as, everybody's favorite, Road America, Road Atlanta, VIR, and this, and to a certain extent, Watkins Glen. They've got some bigger cleared areas because they've been a high-profile NASCAR track and stuff like that for a while, so they've got big areas cleared for grandstands and stuff. But where you've got trees, you've got rolling hills, you've got grass. It's a park with a racetrack in the middle of it, and I appreciate that layout. Yeah, we'll get to the fan experience later, but from a just plot of land upon which to set a racetrack and put me in it, I give it high marks.
Yeah, I agree. And what surprised me was the track itself is kind of compact. I mean,
Yeah.
for a road course at just over 2.25 miles, that's not a lot of room on a road course. And the fact that they found a spot where in a 2.2-ish mile layout, you could have that much elevation change.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if anybody saw the race or has seen a race at Mid Ohio on TV or streaming or something, it does not do it justice. I mean, and we had to walk out that way to get to the car, every day, but that walk from turn 1 out to turn 2, the keyhole, was a steep uphill climb.
It was.
Yes.
And then down by turn 4, that 4, 5, 6 S's complex was, a corner after a corner after a corner. There's no rest for the driver, but somehow in between there, they were changing elevation each time. They're going downhill, uphill, downhill, uphill, downhill, uphill, down.
Every corner has an elevation change.
It was.
Yeah, you hear, oh, it's a roller coaster, but no. If you made this track a actual roller coaster, it would be a damn good one.
It would be pretty. Just add a loop or something in there, and
a steeper uphill.
Put a loop in the keyhole.
Put a loop in the keyhole, and you're good to go.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yes, scenic, farm country, is what I took from it. There was a ton of farmland in and around, no neighbors close to complain about the noise.
Yeah.
For anybody familiar with general Ohio, it's kind of in the Hocking Hills area, so it's the more hilly, interesting part of Ohio, and very beautiful. They've got, state parks and a bunch of other stuff around there, much like the Kettle Moraine here, the hills outside of Atlanta for Road Atlanta, things like that. Upstate New York for Watkins Glen.
Oh, upstate New York is gorgeous.
Grab the most scenic part of a state and put a road course in it. Apparently, that's what I like.
Yeah.
Well, because it works. That's what a lot of people like. There's
Yeah.
a reason the track's been here since the 60s.
Exactly.
So location, thumbs up from everybody.
Yeah.
Right swipes.
Definitely.
USDA choice.
It was good.
Yeah.
Very good. So let's pop in then to atmosphere / hospitality. So this is overall fan experience, fun factor, the access, the viewing areas, the concessions, accommodations, surrounding towns, those types of things. Where do we stand? Where does Mid Ohio stand, I guess, on that?
I thought our Airbnb was fabulous. We had
Yeah.
someone's hunting cabin, basically, or hiking cabin. It was
Yes.
great. I loved it.
I'll put in the as a little shout out to the guy, very tolerant, putting up with 3 race fans in his house for a weekend. I'll put the link to his Airbnb in the show description.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If anybody
it's
heads to this area,
a fantastic place to stay.
yeah, absolutely.
Highly, highly recommend.
Yeah.
That was nice. The surrounding towns were interesting.
Quaint.
Yeah.
Quaint, yeah. In a lot of cases, they're quite quaint.
Many brick buildings.
The roads we got to drive back, it was pretty fun, actually.
Even in a top-heavy Trailblazer, they were kind of fun to rip around on. I'll say that.
Viewing is where I get very hung up.
Yeah.
And I just want to mention that I get hung up in it before we get to the hospitality, because that's really good and I want to end on a high note, but there are 2 places to watch the race at Mid-Ohio. The Keyhole and just inside the track by what turn was that? That would be
4 or 5.
The 4 or 5 complex there.
Yeah.
That's
the
it.
whole back side of the track, you can get 2 or 3 corners in. It's, we talked about it with the elevation change. It would be a downfall of, a lot of road courses.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of places it still is. Because they haven't made an investment in screens. We like to talk about Road America, but really it's that that heart of Road America has some good views. But if you get out into the carousel or out into Canada Corner, you're only seeing those features in a lot of places. But Road America has made an investment in fan experience that I think we go back to Mr. Atherton talking about. We want it to be this way, where they're still improving the loudspeakers, but they have loudspeakers everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They have screens, most importantly, showing the action that you can't see from where you are.
Mm-hmm.
So you can hit a high name corner, like hey, this is a really famous corner. I want to go see the carousel. I want to go see Canada Corner at Road America, and there's a screen there, so you can enjoy the rest of the race while getting to see that iconic corner.
Yep.
And I agree that where Mid-Ohio could stand to improve a little bit is with screen placement, size, and quantity, because there are lots of great things to see that are only 1 or 2 corners. It'd be fun to go watch racing there, but it would require hiking all over the track to see the race 1 corner at a time, because there are 2 screens in the whole place. And
where we went on Friday when we were kind of getting the lay of the land, when we weren't getting blown over, was going into their version of the carousel. There was that footbridge on the very back side. We were standing on the inside there. That was actually a pretty neat viewing spot, because they're, excuse me, to our left they were cresting a hill.
Yep.
So you could see them. The cars are getting light. How they're putting the power down. Quick left-hand jog into a right-handed trail braking area. The guys were really working through there, and that would be fun to watch. But that's the only part of it you can see. Yep. And there was no screen back there, so you had, and I don't think I heard any loudspeakers there either.
I don't remember that either.
So, I mean, until a minute and a half goes by and you see that same car or group of cars come back around, you have no idea what went on.
Yeah, was there a lead change? Did someone pit? Who knows?
Right.
Yeah,
and once you get into longer races, you no longer know what position you're watching.
Yeah, once you get, you can look at the position lights, but again, we're talking about road courses where it's not a street course where you're crammed into a city street. They had the space to build up runouts, barriers, and fences, so you're not super close to the cars necessarily, so some of those position lights are hard to see. Mm-hmm. They help on TV with telephoto lenses, but in person, they're not super helpful.
Yeah.
So the viewing, I guess if we want to call it a gripe, it is not the actual track, like
No.
the views from where you stand on the track of the track. It's the facilities and operations making some more investment.
Something that I was actually very pleased by, kind of trying to, one from column A, one from column B, complaints and positives. They had excellent construction of their viewing berms, grandstands.
Yes.
When you were, we've been places where when you're next to the track, you can't see anything because you're below track level, or, or it's like, why am I here? I can't see anything. Like you have a worse view at the track than you have on TV. Mm-hmm. And I think they had excellent earthworks done to get people high enough that they could see what they were there to see. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big positive. They spent a lot of time investing in that. But the technology side.
So so they invested a lot so you could see where you're standing. Now they need to invest a little bit so you can see where you're not standing.
And maybe
Yeah.
that's the next thing.
That's the
I
next
think
step.
You pointed
And
that
even
out.
and then I said even that was not a hallmark of Road America until they got
Very
they got
recently.
some reinvestment recently, probably because of the return of IndyCar.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, they made a...
and that's a relatively new thing for even near and dear to our hearts. But I think once they get those screens, we're going to move on to hospitality next, and I think that's gonna make it a pretty complete package if they can get better screens or more screens.
Right. So, viewing, you want to talk about concessions or access? Because we got some stories with access.
Concessions, I think, is an easy one just because it kind of goes into hospitality, and
Yeah.
they had a lot of that. They had the big Patron tent, which we haven't seen in a while.
Nope.
They had concessions like Chipotle, which I was very surprised to see at a track. Your standard snack concessions,
Track food.
hamburgers,
Yeah, they
hot
had
dogs, all that stuff.
as we in the tracks episode we kind of griped about Watkins having like one snack bar open. All of the major snack bars, they don't have like the extra overflow ones where you can like only buy a beer on a packed NASCAR weekend, but
Right.
all the main snack bars were open when
and
we were there.
they brought in their local. We had the barbecue place,
Yep.
Smoking Dick's.
That's the most impressive.
The food truck, the food trailer part. I mean, even Road America doesn't do that.
No,
Right.
I think
So,
that would be
right.
something that they could.
That
bring,
might be the
know,
next step for Road America.
They
But yeah,
have
that was a really
the-
good idea.
They have the locally run stands, so you've got some of that at Road America. But yeah, bringing in food trucks where you get really unique stuff. You get crazy, awesome donuts from a local
yeah.
bakery.
What was the name of that bakery?
Eight Sisters.
Eight Sisters.
Yep.
Eight Sisters.
Eight Sisters
yeah.
Bakery and Smoking Dick's Barbecue.
Oof.
Smoked mac and cheese, my lord.
Oh my god!
The best mac and cheese I've ever had in my
I've thought
life.
about that every day.
Yeah,
was
I'm
really
trying to
good.
recreate it at home.
And Tristan actually told me to keep him away from the Eight Sisters donut stand.
I don't have the self
Because he wanted me to be his self-control because
Yeah.
the donuts were so good.
Well, you got the what was it? The maple.
It was a maple cinnamon roll.
Massive.
So family and dear friends who know me well know that I would not be able to control myself.
So, yeah.
That's a 10, honestly.
Yeah.
Smoking Dick's Barbecue, if that was the only thing there, that would have been enough for me.
Because that's all we ate the whole
Yeah, that's all we
weekend.
ate.
That's literally all we ate. I ate salads until yesterday just to try to make up.
Just cleanse it.
Just to try to cleanse it. Yeah, smoked mac and cheese. I had a pork tato, ladies and gentlemen.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
A giant baked potato with pulled pork, barbecue sauce, coleslaw, sour cream cheese, and bacon bits.
Ugh.
Their sauce was great. All right, this is a food podcast.
Yeah,
now.
yep.
I don't even want to talk about
Anyway.
it.
So after the cooking
So
we did at the Airbnb and the discussion of the food trucks, we are now the Czech Kitchen podcast. I don't know something. We're
Czech
a food-
Stove.
We're a food podcast now.
The Czech Stove podcast. That brings us, really, the last thing here is, for the atmosphere hospitality section, is access. And hot damn did we get some access this weekend. That was the best. IMSA, typical for every IMSA race weekend, paddock was open.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody checking. Like, we kept our tickets in the car.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, we scanned them to get in the gate. We left them in the car. No one checked anywhere. We could just, wherever we wanted to go, gates were open, come on in, take a closer look, have a great time.
About the strongest thing we saw in regards to don't go here was a strongly worded Tensa barrier saying, this is the hold area after the races. Saying you can't go in here.
Oh, the tech line, the post-race tech
Yep,
line.
and the parts dump.
Yes.
Yes. But it was like, please don't grab things from here unless you're a race team. Please. There wasn't anybody standing there. I could have grabbed a fender if I wanted to. And then,
Right.
it was like a Tensa barrier and a strongly worded printout. Then that was about as crazy as the restrictions on access got.
I gotta say, I liked the Mid-Ohio garage layout. I
Yes.
thought that was kind of cool. They started with the WeatherTech cars. I don't know how they do it. They just basically did top down. Everyone had one, and they were kind of shallow, but they were exactly the right size for the car and the tool chest to sit on either side. And then they worked. It looked pretty contentedly with the removable parts outside of the garages.
Yeah. The cars and the tools were all in the garage area, and then
Oh, right,
all
like
of
we
the-
showed on the video. I mean, it
Yeah.
was very cool to see in person.
all the spares and the hospitality areas for executives and stuff were across the alley.
Plus, just the look of the garages, like they just. It was like in somebody's garage at their house, just like a general overhead door. It wasn't
Yep.
something state of the art. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. They've probably been touched up a little bit since they were built in the '60s, but I mean, it was just like an old barn or an old, literally like someone's garage that you'll find out, just driving past someone's house. And
That's cool.
And we
doors on both sides, so you can walk to the other side of the building and look in the other side and get a closer look at, oh man, they're working on the transmission on this one, or
Yeah.
I think
something out the back.
I think we posted a photo, or you might have seen it in the video. But like I, for example, found out that the LMP cars just use like Olympic standard weight plates for BOP weight additions
Yeah,
on the
that
back
was
of the
funny.
car.
That
There's
was
just
funny.
like there's like weight collars and just weight plates on the back of the car to adjust overall weight. And it's like, well, that's a surprise. And I never seen that before, because most of the garages at a lot of IMSA races are one-sided. You don't get to see the back of the car. They're backed in, nose out, and you can see a lot of stuff, but you can't necessarily see the back end when they're in the garages.
Right. Obviously, so yeah, the garages were really cool. And then you get out.
Layout too.
Yeah, the layout was
Compact, because it's a compact track. You don't have to walk down a 4-mile long avenue of garages. There's like 3 or 4 garages next to each other, and then there's another layer.
Another
They're all
row,
kind of stacked on top of each other versus a hugely long,
I did kind of like that.
because I'm a vampire, sun-baked, paved paddock that makes me want to just shrivel into a raisin.
And there is a little something to be said for the interior of the track being so compact.
Yeah.
Because one of the major flaws of Road America is that if you want to go to Canada Corner, if you want to go to the carousel, or if you want to do both, good luck doing it during a race. You're going to be driving and sitting in actual traffic
Yeah.
during the race because they're very far apart.
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
true. Very true. So the fact that the track is shorter, you can just walk there.
In a 2-hour and 45-minute race, you could just potentially, if they had more screens, I'll say it again, wander around the entire perimeter of the track and kind of soak up the whole thing, because it's not that long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then obviously, as is, prevalent in all IMSA races, the grid walk and the hot pit access pre-race, which was, especially on the Saturday race, the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge race, that really sealed the deal as why this was a freaking awesome weekend for us.
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
Probably the highlight of the weekend.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Anybody who is following us on social media will know where we're going.
Where we're
Yeah,
going with
absolutely.
this, but if you haven't followed it, or if you didn't pay attention to what I said in the intro, in the open of this, Andrew, you found the team, so if you want to kind of...
I did. I'm trying to remember. The first year I went to Road America was 2015.
Sounds
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I remember we were doing the
14.
14.
Was it
Because we've already camped 3 times.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, because
So-
now
Because then
we're in
15,
the-
you did the Watkins traveling race with us.
Yep. Right. So 14. We were doing the grid walk for Continental, and there was a Cayman, a Porsche Cayman, black with yellow stripes on the side, and on the back, across basically the 3-part back, it said "Drive yourself happy," and I was like, oh shit. Yeah, I'm gonna take a picture of that, and I used it as my Facebook cover photo for a year. Go back the next year, they had it on a different car. I think it was another Cayman that year.
Yeah, I think that's when they moved to the orange and black.
Yeah, that's when we moved to orange
Yeah.
and black. So I'm realizing it's the same team. It's Mosing Motor Cars.
Murillo Racing.
Well, see, that's the thing. Originally, it was Mosing. When he went to the orange and white and orange and black, then it was a team up with, I think, Murillo Racing. But yeah, so different car, but still had the logo on the back. Drive yourself happy. Take a picture, use it as my Facebook cover photo. For a year, it's kind of become a tradition. So this year, during practice, I realized they had it in a really cool spot on this AMG Mercedes. It's kind of in the corner. He moves where it is. It's been on the top. It's been on the side. It's been across the back. So I wanted to get a picture of that. And so the grid walk starts, and I beeline it as best I can to this car and sneak around the back and take a picture. And I don't even know who it was who had the idea. I think it might have been Tristan. Was it you?
I noted that, hey, that orange looks kind of like somebody else's orange.
Mm-hmm. We know.
We know someone who has an orange logo.
Yeah, and Nick, being the social butterfly and the salesperson that he is, goes up and asks one of the crew people if they, wouldn't terribly mind if we put the sticker on the car. And they said, well, why don't you ask the man himself?
Meanwhile, Andrew and I are watching in what I would describe as hopeful horror.
It was cowering. It was
They were kind of cowering away.
It was cowering.
They were almost ducking behind another car.
Yeah, it was hopeful horror.
So
we couldn't believe he was doing it, but we really wanted him to.
The conversation really came out of one of us had the idea. I think it was Andrew said, we would buy Drive Yourself Happy bumper stickers for our own car.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. So
I've been wanting to get one because it's kind of a, not to get into personal issues, but it's something that means something to me as a person who has problems with anxiety and depression. It means something to me. It's something I do for my own health, and it's kind of become a personal mantra for me in a way that I saw it on the car, and it was to me like, oh shit, yeah.
Other people do this too. Yep.
And so we went to talk to
Mr. Jeff Mosing.
Mr. Jeff Mosing himself, the Drive Yourself Happy guy.
So basically, we went up and we just asked him, we're like, is there any plans to sell Drive Yourself Happy logos as a bumper sticker, because you have 3 sales right in front of you, and I'm sure knowing this crowd, you could probably do pretty well with it.
Mm-hmm.
And, he had said, the friendliest guy you're ever going to meet, this is a guy who doesn't just run the team, but he also drives the car. He was minutes away from hopping into a professional race.
Mm-hmm.
And here he is talking to us about bumper stickers or potential bumper stickers. Very accommodating guy. He said, we're actually thinking about it. We just hired a new marketing PR girl. Here's the team email. Reach out to us here. There's kind of some things in the works. We don't want to really announce anything yet. He's like, if you want some, email us at this email. We can put something together for you. But he kind of ended his statement as like, it's kind of an overall new marketing plan for the team that we're working on. And remembering what Tristan said about our orange logo, I said to him, speaking of marketing,
that's what it was.
The orange on your car happens.
I actually had a little heart attack when you said that. I was like, oh my God.
He's going to do it.
My eyes popped open and I took exactly 1/2 step backwards.
Yeah, I think, unconsciously.
So, look, as someone who was trained in sales, the 99.9% of the time, the worst thing that's going to happen is someone says no.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for the
and
sale.
we had that too.
So we'll get to that too. But I just said, speaking of marketing, it seems like the orange on our logo matches the orange on your AMG very well. I think this would fit nicely somewhere. And expecting him just to say, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. But
he got super excited.
He got super excited about it, and he said, does it need contrast? Is it on a clear background? Is it on a white background?
Yeah,
I said, no,
this is all about it.
He was all about it, and I said, it's orange, but it's on a white background, so
anywhere you want
to put it. And so he takes it, and he walks around the back of the car and asks one of the mechanics, is this going to be in the way? And the guy's like, no, and he just takes it off and slaps it right on the back of his car, and just like that, we were a race sponsor.
On the same picture as the slogan, I'm just...
yeah, it's right next to the Drive Yourself Happy logo.
Yeah, you've got it sandwiched between Mercedes Roundel and the Drive Yourself Happy
no better
sticker.
Place.
And
now, grand scheme of things, on an entire car, it's on the back, below the spoiler, and it's a 3.5-inch sticker.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly 3 people probably saw it as it was going around the track, and it was us because we knew it was there.
But
we knew it was
if
there.
you knew it was there, it was, even without any kind of optics, very visible from the top of the hill by the keyhole.
It was, truly.
You could definitely see it was there.
Mm-hmm.
So just absolutely made our weekend. So Murillo Racing, Jeff Mosing.
Mosing Motor Cars.
Mosing Motor Cars.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We'll be in touch.
We'll be in touch.
I'm still looking for that merch. We got some thanks to give out to you, on the personal level, and it was huge for me personally, and also for us.
I know it was. We were walking away, and Andrew held his hand out. He's like, "Look at my hand," and his hand was like shaking.
Literally shaking.
He was shaking with excitement. So that just made our weekend. It didn't work. It did, actually, you know what? We got to mention. The car started 22nd, and Jeff Mosing and his co-driver Eric Foss did a fantastic job.
Yeah, they worked it.
They worked it, avoided some trouble,
Whew.
stayed out of trouble, and brought it home 9th, from 22nd to 9th.
Hell
so
yeah.
a 13-place jump in a 2-hour race.
I'm not gonna say we had anything to do with it, but
Well, actually, guys, I did some hard math. The sticker added 1/2 mile per gallon in the fuel mileage.
Definitely.
It added about 60 to 65 pounds of rear downforce and roughly a dozen extra horsepower.
I can see that.
yeah.
I can see that. And it doesn't break BOP, so you know.
It doesn't break BOP.
If you own a racing team,
If you own a racing team
We
and
have
are looking for a
lots of
quick
these
bump, we
stickers.
got lots of stickers to go
You
around.
cover
man.
them in the car, and you've got a world record holder.
That's right.
You can go to Bonneville with it. Screw
Yep.
IMSA.
So we had the access, and we had such great success with that. Nick thought that maybe he'd try it with a second car on the next day.
Yeah, it worked the first time.
It did.
We were 1 for 1. We were batting 1,000.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, let's just shoot for the stars here and let's go to the prototype class, like the top class in IMSA on the Sunday race. Yeah, they weren't having it.
The Flexbox Pro.
The core Motorsport Core Autosport car, which this is not a knock on them. We're not calling them out in that way.
Oh hell no!
But-
We were batting way above our level just by asking
just
Jeff
absolute-
Mosing to
Yeah.
just by merely approaching him.
Yeah.
So this is not a knock on Core. Thank you for letting us talk with you on the
Hell
grid,
yeah.
Core. That was fun.
It's classic.
But they also have a very similar orange in their car to our logo,
Orange and white.
orange and white. So I asked one of the guys, what are the odds? What are the chances? And his exact response was, as he was vigorously shaking his head. So we're 1 for 2 on the weekend, but 1 was really all we needed.
I'm just gonna say, they didn't get a 9th place finish.
Are you throwing shade at him now?
I'm just saying they didn't get a 9th place finish. There's no judgment attached to that.
Just facts.
There probably aren't even 9 cars in the class. They didn't get a 9th place finish. That's all I'm saying.
There were 13 cars in the class.
All joking aside, if anybody wants one of these stickers, if you're local, if you know us, just
Ask.
drop us a line, ask. If you're not and you want one,
For your race car.
for your race car, for your personal car, for your helmet, for the back of your MacBook, they're nice round white orange stickers. We've got photos of them. We will definitely send you one. You don't even need to send us a self-addressed stamped envelope. We will send it to you.
For sure.
Just get in touch with us, give us your mailing address, and we'll send one off to you.
And as you're getting in touch with us too, just take a second to go look up Mosing motor cars as well, and
Yeah.
Marilla Racing, see what those guys are up to, because they're obviously really cool people to work with, and we want to give.
They are. That they really are.
Absolutely. What else do we got? We got access, viewing consent, blah blah blah. How about let's move into the next bucket here. Let's
Yeah.
move into the wow factor real quick. Anything that really initial impressions walking in like, whoa.
Yes, because when we first got in, you see this kind of car park tent RV city, but it's not actually inside the track.
Yeah.
And I never remembered that the whole weekend. Where you park, due to the interior size of the track being so restricted, the inside's all camping. So you park on the outside. And while it looks very impressive, it's annoying to navigate.
A little bit.
Because you end up parking at the farthest possible, the most remote location compared to where you want to be.
Especially if you're general admission. If you have like a ticket to a grandstand seat or something, like an assigned seat, you can go other spots.
Yeah.
True, but
Paddock-
grandstands are
paddock
even
passes.
farther.
Yeah, they're further away
Yeah.
though. They're definitely further away.
I would say wow factor for me, I haven't been a racing fan my whole life, but I jumped into the sports car racing with 2 feet when I did get on that train.
Mhm.
And Mid-Ohio is a name that we mentioned in our preview podcast. It comes and goes, it's there, it's not there, and it's kind of, legendary. Like, it comes out of the mist every 10 years, and, and so there was a little bit of a wow factor. I'm like, oh, I finally lined up, all the stars aligned, I'm going to Mid-Ohio, finally, after hearing about it for 12 years.
Mhm.
So there was kind of a wow factor for me. It's not, like the wow factor we mentioned, we were describing it in our races episode, where it's like, oh, it's such a large track, it's a, amazing architecture or what have you. It's it's a smallish road course in Ohio.
Mhm.
That doesn't seem like a lot, but it's kind of a near legendary status because because of its fleeting nature.
Okay. Yeah, I think in my view is kind of skewed just because of some of the other tracks I've been to. I really didn't get a whole wow factor out of it.
Sure.
But also, I'm comparing that to Indianapolis and Daytona and places like that. So it's not a knock on Mid Ohio, but there wasn't anything when I first got there that was like very, first impression grandiose about it.
Yeah, no, nothing visual, nothing auditory, other than, like I said, I saw the gates and I was like, ooh, I'm finally here, finally. Like that
Right.
was the excitement. That was the wow factor for me, was, having it finally appear.
So 2 yeses and a no? Or you were kind of in the middle.
I'm kind of in the middle because I think, while we didn't explicitly say it in this section, the one wow factor we all had was, wow, that's small.
That's true.
And, well, obviously, wow, that's really an off-camber corner, stuff like that. But there's no grandiose nature to Mid-Ohio, and that's not bad.
It's not a bad thing.
Pomp and circumstance, no. Sense of mystery, maybe.
Definitely. There is something very much real about the track itself.
And as far as sense of mystery, it's also a sense of mystery to drive with all the elevation changes and off cambers, and like where you want to put the power on is where the car is at its lightest and you have the least amount of grip in some spots. So that leads us into like the raceability. Was it fun to watch a race there?
I don't know. And I only say that because there was some good racing. There was some very bland racing.
Ooh, that first Super Trofeo.
Oh,
I don't think anybody passed anyone.
The only time something happened, someone lost a wheel.
And which happened a lot.
3 someone's lost a wheel.
No, that was the second race. One lost one in the first race.
True.
I guess my conflict in is it good racing is that we had some fantastic racing in both the WeatherTech series and the Conti series in that down to the wire finishes.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
What was the actual lead in WeatherTech? 0.7 seconds or something
for
like that?
For the GT Daytona class, for one class, they were nose to tail at the line.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And we thought the Acura might get him. Like, he was trying.
Close,
he was
very
close.
Yeah.
But and watching, like the Patron, ESM
Patron Nissan.
Yeah.
That dude was on a mission.
Well, they had down into 4. Both of those drivers, I don't know who discovered it first. They discovered if you did an extreme late break, you had a perfect setup for the next corner, and you didn't lose anything. And they were the only team to figure it out. So they would come down that straight into 4.
Perform a brake demolition.
Like demons. Every lap. And they would get someone every lap. That was fun to see.
Yep. Yeah, and there was
they were braking like to the tune of hundreds of feet later than anybody else.
Yeah.
And then going the other side on the exit of that, going into the S's complex, you had people with very different ideas about when to get back on the power. Probably based on, layout, engine and drive layout.
I'm thinking of that WeatherTech Ferrari who was ready to do a Grand Theft Auto on the guy in front of it.
Yeah, and then that was a Porsche. So
yeah,
I think you're talking about
very different
when we talk
configurations.
When we talk about in our racing episode, you've got different places where different cars make their speed.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, Porsches, hey, small, light, pretty fast, but they make most of their speed in the tight stuff. Not here.
No.
If you've got a rear or even a mid-engine rear drive car, and you've got a downhill off camber turn after going uphill, it's going to want to do a little bit of ballet on the other side of that corner.
Yeah.
And it's not where the Porsches are happy. And it's you get the big heavy front engine cars, the true mid-engine Ferraris, things like that. Those are even a little happier there, and they're giving them the old bump and run,
twice
in one corner. He's
he was so mad.
Yeah, very different ideas about again when to get on the power. That was always exciting. Are they going to fight through that? Who's going to actually be in front the next time they come around? Is he going to get them? There was some good racing, and despite some argy bargy, as our friends in the booth always say, it was clean. I think we had
caution-free race on Sunday.
Caution-free race entirely. 2 hours and 45 minutes of no full course yellows.
Pure unadulterated racing by really good racing drivers.
Yeah.
Then
In a place that seemed tight. You thought it was going to be a shit show.
Yeah, you're like, well, this
did.
is going to be a mess.
but then 9/11 was just a train.
Right.
And
Yep.
it was
9/11 and Super
so
Travail.
boring.
And
Yeah.
that's the problem. Is I think some of these races where a lot of them are more am or pro am. This is a really hard track, and
where you qualify is where you're going to finish.
yeah,
more or
because
less.
you're not going to want to wreck the car that you've paid to drive in this weekend, and okay, let's try to make up as much as we can in qualifying, but I'm not going to push it with too much traffic out here, and that did result in some pretty snoozy development series.
Yeah,
races.
the feeder races didn't put on too much of a show, unfortunately. But the big boys and girls, they put on a show for us, and it was clean too. So raceability, check plus, thumbs up.
I mean, it has to be a yes, doesn't it? Because when there is a race to be had, the racing's great.
Yes.
Yes.
If you have a situation where no one is willing to race, it can be boring, but that's not on the track. That's on the drivers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
So three thumbs up on the raceability. I wouldn't be opposed to going back whenever it shows up in the schedule again. Hopefully they don't just drop it again. But
Yeah, I would be very pleased to see it on the schedule for next year.
I think if you've got Acura well invested, you're probably going to see that track again.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
that is, good point.
It's their home track. A lot of that's produced in Ohio.
And they
so.
finished with a 1-2 in the prototype class at their home
And
track. So that was pretty.
1-3 in one of the GTs, right?
The Acura was second, and I think fourth or
second
fifth.
and fourth.
Yeah, 2-4, I think.
So it was 1-2 in one class and 2-4 in another. So a very strong showing at the home
Super
track for Acura, which was cool to see.
Yeah.
That just about does it. A very positive experience at Mid-Ohio. Thank you to Mid-Ohio. Thank you again to Marilla Racing, Mosing Motor Cars, Jeff and Eric, and team for making our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So
yeah.
this was an experience all in all, with that being just absolutely the cherry on the experience.
We have video of
It's-
this too, by the way, that we're editing, and we're going to get it up
We will
on
get
social.
that up as well. It's a whole jar of cherries on the Sunday that was Mid-Ohio. Thank you, Mid-Ohio, for being an experience that reminds me why I go do this, versus one of those experiences where afterwards I get done, I go, why do I do this?
Yeah, right. And you know what? I strongly recommend from all of us, top to bottom, accommodations, towns, the track.
Go see Mid-Ohio if
Yeah,
you get a chance.
to go.
Especially if you're in the Midwest. It's close.
We've tried to avoid comparisons to this in the past, but much like comments from a certain car television series with three British men, it's hard to get us all to agree on something. And we can all agree on Road America and very little else. The fact that we all had a positive experience, I think it speaks well for Mid-Ohio.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we've thanked enough people. We don't need to go around and do thank yous this time.
No,
we're
So obviously we thank you, the listeners, for tuning in. Even if we suck, you guys are awesome. We want to talk with you, though, not just talk at you. So please go find us on social. We're on Facebook at Check Engine Podcast. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Check Engine Pod. Obviously, you can find us at checkenginepodcast.com is our website. Our email is inbox@checkenginepodcast.com, or you can reach either one of us individually, Nick, Tristan, or Andrew, at checkenginepodcast.com. We are being broadcast all over the place. We just got added to Radio Public a couple weeks ago, in addition to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Pocket Cast, Overcast, every place that basically shows or streams podcasts, you can find us there. With that being said, I think it's about time we shut this one down. So thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you guys again later.
Later.
Later.